Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So with the recent news of Destiny's cancellation, a lot of people have been thinking, well, that's fine, we know Destiny's gone, but just what the bloody hell was it? Hey there, it's Future Self here. I'm just going to swoop in and decry my past self as an absolute fucking idiot. No, the game is not Destiny, it's Titan. Sorry about that, I would reshoot, but I'm currently pumped up with anesthetic from the dentist, and I don't have full control of the left side of my face. Well, the good news is partial answers come to us via the people at Kotaku. Now, Blizzard have not said anything officially themselves, but apparently one of the Kotaku writer-author people was contacted by about 6 people who had worked on / seen the project, and they had a little bit to say. So first of all, it was a sci-fi game, and it involved shooting things. It was set on the planet Earth as well, and basically, in terms of zones, it would have had things like Australia, Europe, South Africa, I think, North America was mentioned as well, and it was supposed to be extremely large with more zones being added in expansions and that kind of thing. Now, one of the more unique things that they planned for Project Titan was the idea of you kind of being regular Joe by day, badass hero person by night. You see, the world is set, well, the game is set on an Earth that has just fended off an alien invasion with 3 factions vying for control, but in what seems to be a more clandestine manner. So you join up with one of these factions, and by night you kind of fight for them, but by day you're a butcher, or a mechanic, or an entrepreneur, or I don't know, maybe you make videos on the fake internet, but you do something. And what could happen is you could be going around running your little business, and then you would get a call from the corporation who you're signed up with, who'd be like, or not corporation, you get a call from your faction that said, hey, you need to go do a mission over here. Then you go into the elevator and kind of put on your full combat gear and off you go. And they described some of those things like a bit of a meld of, this is weird, StarCraft 2's in-game cinematics, this is art style wise, them crossed with a kind of The Incredibles and Team Fortress 2-ish sort of vibe. So I think that they were definitely going with the timeless, more Blizzardy aesthetic, which would have worked quite well. But look, we all know what combat is. We all know what first-person shooter combat is. I think what was different, or at least super different about Destiny, whoops, about Titan, was this whole idea of you having a day job. Now, this was supposed to be driven by some really complex AI, and a lot of things where you could actually have relationships with in-game, NPCs and things like that. You could start a family, all those things. And essentially, that would just be all driven by the AI. You would be making, money and shit from your business. And honestly, I think that that's a cute idea, but it's not going. It will only work depending on the game being a very certain way. So let's just take EVE Online. You can do things like, say, mining, manufacturing, kind of day job-ish things in EVE, but they're hyper interesting in EVE because first, it's got the crazy ass dynamic economy thing. Well, because everything's player driven, it's a full sandbox. And, when you make a ship in EVE, chances are you're doing it to give to your corporation so they can give it to the guys you're going to be fighting it out in the front line. There's a lot of cool shit going on there with EVE's economy and all that. Whereas if Titan was going to be a not single player, if Titan was going to be like a kind of sandbox MMO, I don't think it would have worked. I'd say there would have needed to be some sort of really interesting dynamic sandbox elements that were just the main thing of the game if any of that day job stuff was actually going to have some hope of working. And it was weird because they said they planned on having it so that players could do either or both and have them both be really viable ways to, I don't know if just to progress in the game or just to enjoy the game, but they were both viable things to do. So honestly, I think that this is a little bit strange, and I'd say one of the reasons why they quoted saying, they just weren't finding the fun. Well, I don't know if they would have been able to find the fun in that system. By you just being a butcher by day. Now, this whole by day, by night thing also sounds a bit weird to me. I'm assuming it's not actually like that because that would be really stupid. It's just a very weird game. It's very ambitious. I will absolutely give them that. Extremely ambitious. And I love the idea of you being able to do, just regular sort of Joe job and by day and then sort of badass hero person at night. I think that's really cool. But as I said, I think it needs to be in a full sandbox game, and of course I've got no idea whether this was supposed to be a full sandbox or not, But since there seem to be 3 factions that aren't player controlled who are like the main people, well, then I'm not thinking it's going to be based like that. I mean, if the game was like large enough to support players vying for control and territory, but like say corporations in Nullsec and Eve, then you could get interesting stuff, because there could be someone who started up their own business who is using all the money from their business to buy guns and armor and ammo and shit for the people who are going to be really good at fighting. So that means they can capture bits of territory, more easily, and maybe you could put a refinery in the territory to get some natural resources. Who the hell knows? But I just think this is a game that really would have not needed to be a theme park. Which that was just my initial thought on this. And just reading what Kotaku said and what they reported, that they've, apparently heard anyway, is that, it was just this sort of split thing. And I think that, sure, shooting can be made really fun. You can have a funnish open world, MMO shooter thingy. I'm just not convinced that the other half of the game would have really held up, or even would have been interesting to people. I think that the level of detail that you would need to kind of do like a sort of real life business sort of simulation thingy that's actually fun and engaging is really high, and I don't know how that would just play out with the whole world. Plus, how would you balance all the different businesses? And I just think that they must have found some problematic elements within that system, that eventually led to them deciding they couldn't really find the fun in it. Of course, it's also possible that their combat was shit, because as we know, Blizzard are not people who make shooter games. That's a thing they've not done. I mean, they kind of tried with StarCraft Ghost, but really it was more of a kind of stealth action game. So, that's what's going on there with Project Titan. All a bit strange. It seems like, honestly, it was similar enough to Destiny in its sort of ideas, but just far bigger. Far bigger and more ambitious. But it just seems like they weren't able to pull it together. Actually, I'm silly. There was one more thing that I needed to mention. The game was supposed to be split between first person and third person, so when you're out doing combat, it would be first person, and when you're roaming around the city doing all that stuff, it would be third person. A little bit like a game that Bungie made one time. So it's funny, the parallels with Destiny. I finished Destiny last night. Well, finished, major air quote. I finished the story, by the way, fucking laughable. Oh my god, the people who made Halo 1 and 2 and 3 and Reach and ODST, they made that ending. Wow. Yeah, so, look, the Destiny comparisons are definitely something that's there, in that it was supposed to be an MMO-ish / shared world shooter, if Bungie would have you listen to what they say. It was supposed to be a game like that, there's parallels between the two, but ultimately, I think Titan was definitely going for a lot more ambition, and, with that more cartoony art style it was going for, I'd say you would have got, gameplay that would have suited that a little bit more, maybe taking a few Team Fortress 2 sort of influences, but I'd totally imagine that it would have had some sort of loot system. I mean, come on, the TF2 way of doing weapons, you could very easily do a Borderlands-ish system on that, and I think that Blizzard would definitely be able to make more interesting loot than Bungie, because holy shit, Bungie, your legendary weapons are not as cool as legendary weapons in other games. But I just thought I'd make that point. I'm trying to think of any other things that I've got to say on this. I think, one point is that I'm not convinced by it being set on Earth. Blizzard are, and it was actually Ian Beckman who pointed this out on Twitter, but Blizzard are so good at making worlds of their own and things like that. And really interesting settings. Maybe if they don't always nail the lore, they at least make a cool setting most of the time. Just putting an Earth? I mean, come on, that's a bit boring. We live in Earth. It's not that. It's okay. There's pretty places like Iceland, but come on, if you could go to Venus or Mars, or I'm just listing Destiny planets, aren't I? But if you could go off to, some far sector in space and make your own world there, your own little, or, just make your own flat new universe, then I think that could have been a better thing. But anyway, that's basically the lowdown on what's going on with Titan, more the lack of it. Apparently, the cancellation has cost them from 50 to 70 million. So, there you go. I mean, that's game development costs there if you're doing a humongous project. I mean, hey, that's according to some industry analysts, but that would have been enough money to fund about 4.5 The Witcher 2s, which, I kind of would have liked that. But anyway, that's what's going on with Blizzard. Maybe we're going to see some cool stuff. They've said that Titan, in terms of its codename, was actually cancelled back last year, and the team's been working, or at least some of the team is still together working on something with a different codename. Now, MMO Champion reported that someone told them there was a codename called Prometheus floating about, so I'd imagine there's a tiny team with a sensible amount of resources working on Prometheus. Then the rest of the 30 staff or whatever from Titan are probably just heading off to a few other projects. And that's pretty much it. So, that's it for this video. There's all the Titan news, I suppose, or I mean, this is probably the end of it unless we get some big splooge of information where they tell us everything. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.